Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
You are listening to the Brilliance Business Show. I am your host, Mark Stephen Pooler. Conversations with leading experts in business. And today I have the most incredible guest, Steve Lowell. Steve is a #1 international best-selling author, award-winning global speaker and vice president of Global Speakers Federation. Steve, welcome to the Brilliance Business Show.
Well, thank you so much, Mark. It's so fun to be here. And I want to take a moment to congratulate you on the work that you are doing, because you're changing lives by putting people in the spotlight who have an important message. And so I wanted to congratulate you on your success.
Thank you for your kind words, Steve. I really appreciate that. And I'm really looking forward to a conversation with you today. Before I get started, I just need to make a legal disclaimer that Steve is not offering legal advice or legal assistance. So let's get started with the show. Steve, can you share with our listeners a little bit about yourself and your business?
Sure. So what I do now, Mark, is I travel the world with my wife, Jane. She and I have a business together. And we travel the world and we work with entrepreneurs, experts, thought leaders, coaches, professional speakers, trainers, entrepreneurs and business people of all types. And what we do is we help them leverage the spoken word in order to generate business and generate wealth. Now, by leveraging the spoken word, what I mean is we help them craft their business messages. We help them learn how to deliver those business messages with power and with conviction. And then we help them take those messages to the platform. Now, sometimes that platform is a stage where they need to be in front of a large audience and speak. Sometimes that platform is a webinar, or maybe it's a boardroom, or even a one-on-one meeting with prospects and clients. So what we do is we help them craft those messages with power and give them the skills to deliver those messages in any environment, on any platform, so that they can position themselves to be the only logical choice in their field. And what we're finding is, in 35 years of doing this work, I found that so many experts and entrepreneurs really struggle with standing out and getting noticed and being chosen. And so that's our mission, is to help people position themselves as the only logical choice in their field. And we do it through messaging and through the spoken word.
And it's powerful. Speaking from stage is a powerful way to attract clients, to gain exposure, credibility, authority, just from speaking on stage, not to mention overcoming the fear of public speaking. It's one of the #1 fears, to get up and speak in public, isn't it, Steve?
Well, it is, and it's interesting because it's the same all over the world, Mark, and it's what we found is that even somebody who has vast business experience and somebody who really is a leading expert in their field oftentimes don't have the skills that they need to stand in front of an audience, whether it's an audience of thousands or an audience of 2 or 3. They don't have the skills that they need to actually stand up and present in a way that gets their message across in a manner that drives sales and drives business. And that's the focus of what we do.
Who are your customers? Who are your clients? Who do you serve on a daily basis?
We have clients, at all different levels of business, Mark, and all around the world. So typically, our clients are going to be entrepreneurs. They are typically self-employed. They are already quite successful in their field. And what they're trying to do is bring their message and their game to a different level, bring it up to the elite world-class level. So they are accountants, they're sales professionals, they're doctors, they're lawyers, they're speakers, coaches, trainers, consultants, thought leaders, they're healers of all different kinds. And these are the people that want to do more than just serve the individual client that they have. They want to bring their message and their expertise and wisdom and ideas. They want to bring them to a much larger audience. Sometimes it's a local audience, sometimes it's national, international, or even global. So the customers that we serve every day are people who have a message that they want to serve the world in a much bigger way than they're serving it now. And they want to be able to do that by getting on the platform in front of an audience and bringing their message to life.
Do you recall a specific aha moment that led to the launch of your business?
I do. In fact, I have many of them, but this moment in time didn't necessarily lead to the launch of my business, because I've been doing this for 30-something years. And so, what launched my business was way back in my early 20s. But what changed my business was this moment. It's 2010. I'll take you back to 2010. And I'm walking down the hallway in a venue space where I'm holding one of my events. And it was December, and there were Christmas decorations everywhere. And of course, every place was decorated for Christmas. It was December, right? But in this particular place, the Christmas decorations, there was something very different about them. They were captivating. They were fascinating. They were just, something about them was different than every other place. And I couldn't put my finger on it. I just couldn't take my eyes off it. Then when I met the manager of the facility, I asked her, I said, did you do this? Did you put up all these Christmas decorations? And the manager said no, and she gave me the lady's name who did it. And then she said these words. She said to me, she gave me the lady's name who did the decorations, and then she said this. She said, she's really expensive. She's the very best if you can even get her. And I thought, that's what I want. That's what I want people saying about me. And that moment was very important for me, because here's what happened. I've never heard anybody speak that way about a professional before. Really expensive, the very best, if you can even get her. And I thought to myself, I want people saying that about me. But in my mind, I was thinking, there's no way that will ever happen, because I had all the excuses in my mind, right, that we all play. I'm not good enough. I'm struggling, not struggling in my business, but I've kind of hit a plateau. I'll never get past this plateau. Not enough people know me. People aren't going to pay me enough money to put me into the expensive bracket. And I'm not hard to get. I'm everywhere. I mean, I go to every event. I go to every networking event. I mean, I'm everywhere. And so I started thinking about, what do people actually say about me when they talk about me? And here's what I found. Instead of saying he's really expensive, he's the very best, if you can even get him, what I was seeing on social media and when people would introduce me is they would say he's the very best. That I had in my circles of influence. I was known as the very best speaker trainer they had ever seen. So I had that piece. But then what they would say to people is, he's really cheap and he's everywhere. All you got to do is open up any kind of a web page in Ottawa, and he's there. And so I thought, well, that's not going to serve me, because I'm too easy to find. I'm known as being very inexpensive, and I am known as being the best. And so all these people were coming to me, and I was very, very, very busy, Mark, but I wasn't earning enough money, because I had the reputation of being very inexpensive and very easy to get. And so I had to change those two things. And so I made the decision that those two things were going to change, but I didn't know how to change them. And then I met my wife, Jane. Now, Jane is known around the world as the 7-figure mindset mentor. And so she did some work with me, and she helped me change my belief systems and change my mindset. And that changed some patterns that I was caught up in that I didn't even know I had. Patterns that were not serving me, patterns that were keeping my fees low, patterns that were keeping me from being in demand. And so she helped me change these patterns and belief systems. And then what happened was my business started to change. So I'd say around 2014 is when I met Jane. By 2015, things started to change. And in 2017, by that time, Jane and I were together, and we were a couple. And in 2017, we had our first $1 million year, and we've never looked back since then. But what happens now is, in your introduction to me, you introduced me as the vice president of the Global Speakers Federation. Well, the Global Speakers Federation has a reach of 56,000 professional speakers. And in that circle of, in that space, if you ask anybody in that space who knows me, what they would say is, oh, yeah, he's the very best. He's really expensive if you can even get him. And so that's the reputation that we've been able to build. And now we are busier than ever. But the difference is, Mark, that we're charging the fees that I believe I'm actually worth. And we get to pick and choose with whom we work. We get to pick and choose who our clients are. And we get to pick and choose how much we work. And so being able to be positioned as, the very best, really expensive, if you can even get them, has kind of changed our whole life. And so what we do now is we help people position themselves that way. And I did it through the spoken word. I did it through taking stages, getting on the right stages, doing the right things, and helping enough people do that for themselves. And that's the reputation we've established. So I would say that moment where the lady said those words to me, she's really expensive, she's the very best if you can even get her, it wasn't the moment that started my business, but it was certainly the moment that changed my business.
And it's a great example as well how you can have a quantum shift. You did it through a shift in mindset from your wife, Jane, which is absolutely incredible, and using the skills that you already had. What a power couple. You've got mindset skills and you've got all the skills of public speaking, sales, etc., etc. They are two powerful skills to put together. And I like the way you have transformed your own business from not being that person that people saw as really expensive and really difficult to get to, shifting to that status. And that just goes to show all of our listeners, no matter where you are now, you can still move forwards in the direction that you would like to go. Now, you speak on big stages, Steve. Can you tell me about your association with Jack Canfield and Brian Tracy?
Sure. So there was an opportunity, I'm going to say about 8 months ago, not even that, maybe 5-6 months ago, for me to get on the stage with Jack Canfield. And of course, I jumped at that opportunity because that's an opportunity that doesn't present itself very often. So I had the opportunity to meet Jack. I spoke with him. I was on the stage with him. I did a panel, an experts panel with him, had lunch with him, got to know him. And so here's what happened. And I'll tell you, Mark, this is one example of why it is so critically important to be properly prepared when an opportunity presents itself. So here's what happened. I went to the event, and when I spoke at the event, Jack was in the front row. Jack Canfield was in the front row. I had met him, but hadn't had a chance to really get to know him. So he's in the front row, and he's watching me speak, and I only had about 20 minutes on the platform. So I did my 20 minutes, and then right afterwards, immediately afterwards, we all went to the lunchroom, and there was a handful of us who were able to have lunch with Jack Canfield. Now, the other speakers had all already gotten to the table, and Jack was sitting at the table. So when I approached the table, Jack looked at me, and he pointed to me, and he said, "Steve," he said, "that was a master class in how to give a speech." And so I stopped him. I put up my hand and said, "Hey, Jack, wait a second. And I reached into my jacket pocket and I pulled out my phone, my cell phone. And I said, Jack, if I press record, would you say that again? And he said, of course. So I pressed record, and he gave me the most magnificent testimonial. It's on my YouTube channel, and we play it all the time. So I got this amazing testimonial from Jack Canfield. And then what happened was we were sitting at the lunch table, and of course everybody wants to have a piece of Jack. Everybody wants to talk to him. And so he was, polite and talking to everybody. And then there was a break in the conversation, and I said, so Jack, I said, how could we serve you? And Mark, it's like he had been thinking about it the whole time, because he said three things. He said, there are three things. Number one, he said, I want to bring you down to San Diego, California to teach my high-end coaches how to speak. He said, I want to work with you privately because I want to be a more powerful speaker. And I'm writing a new book, and I want to interview you and Jane for the book. And those three opportunities, all of those three things are now in motion. Those wheels are in motion. And we've been in contact with Jack, and now we are bringing Jack back. We're bringing him to our own event where we'll be hosting Jack Canfield. So we've built up this relationship with Jack Canfield through the spoken word because I was prepared and I knew what to do on the stage. So that relationship led to us being connected to Brian Tracy. Now, the Jack Canfield relationship was one of several factors. All of these factors that led to us meeting Brian Tracy happened because of being prepared to speak well on the platform. So we connected with Brian Tracy. Jane and I flew down to his house in San Diego. We met with him and his beautiful wife in their home for almost a full day. We got to know him. We chatted. We interviewed him. We recorded the interview. And we've invited him to come and join us to a live event here in Ottawa. And so he's doing that with his son. And we've built a friendship now with Brian Tracy. So we've shared the stage with Jack. We're sharing the stage with Brian Tracy. And what's happening now is our name is getting associated with these individuals. And now they're starting to introduce us to some of their connections. And this is how it happens. And so as our image becomes more powerful by association with these legends, we become seen now as a part of their circle of influence. And so that's how the Jack Canfield and Brian Tracy thing happened.
What I love about that story, how many opportunities do we miss where someone pays us a beautiful comment or a compliment and we just say thank you, but you have to be brave enough, like Steve, to get your phone out and say, if I press record, will you say that again? And what really stood out to me there as well is from asking one question, how can we serve you, has led to many, many other opportunities. So that is a big lesson there. Now, you are speaking on stage with Grant Cardone, Kevin Hart, Kevin Harrington in Toronto. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because you're, again, speaking with huge names.
Sure, I'm happy to. Well, when we spoke at the event with Jack Canfield, Kevin Harrington was also there. And he wasn't speaking on the same day as me. He was speaking the next day. But we did get a chance to meet with him, and he and I became friends, and we shared some stories and shared some laughs, and he invited my wife Jane and I to go down to his home in Florida, which we are leaving to do that within days of this interview. Like in the next 3-4 days, we're going down to Florida to spend some time with Kevin Harrington. Now, there's one person who helped put all this together and facilitated all this, and his name is Sunil Tulsiani. Now, Sunil lives in Toronto, Canada, and he has been connected with these people for many years. And we met with Sunil back before the Jack Canfield event. In fact, it's Sunil that invited us to speak on the Jack Canfield stage because it was Sunil's event. So we built a relationship with Sunil. Through Sunil, we built a relationship with Jack Canfield, with Kevin Harrington, and with Brian Tracy. And Sunil is bringing Grant Cardone and Kevin Hart and Kevin Harrington to Toronto, and he's invited me to be on that stage. And so I will be on the stage with Grant Cardone and with Kevin Hart and with Kevin Harrington. And so this is the way it happens, you see, Mark, is when you're properly prepared, when you know how to leverage the power of the spoken word, when you have the skills, when you have the structure to prepare a powerful message, and when you have actual substance within your content that makes you stand out above your competition, this is how you get noticed. And by getting noticed, by first getting noticed by Sunil, that led us to Jack Canfield, that led us to Brian Tracy, which also led us to Kevin Harrington, and now that's leading us to Grant Cardone, which leads us to Kevin Hart. So it goes one after the other, after the other, after the other, and now these are not signed deals yet. Well, one of them is my wife Jane has actually just signed a contract to speak on stage with Deepak Chopra. And that relationship happened because of all of these connections. And now there's some talk of putting me on the stage with Gary Vaynerchuk. Now, that hasn't been signed, and that's just talk right now, but I'm very confident that that's going to happen. So what happens with us now, you see, Mark, is when we can associate ourselves with the names in our industry that matter, then we become somebody who matters. And when we become somebody who matters, now we can raise our fees, we can dictate our own terms and conditions, and people will line up to do business with us, provided, now, of course, and this should go without saying, Mark, but sadly it often doesn't, but provided that we do what we say we can do. As professionals, of course, it's assumed that we are able to deliver the results that we promise, that we are able to deliver the service that we promise, that we are able to actually deliver that which we sell. And so provided all that is in place, then leveraging the power of the spoken word strategically and tactically and being properly prepared to do it will take an opportunity and explode it into multiple opportunities. Now, I'll tell you something, though. Sadly enough, at some of these events, I have seen this over and over again, and Mark, I know you have too, where we watch a speaker on the platform, and you and I are watching it, and we are thinking, look at the magnitude of this opportunity. Look who's in the audience. Look who's sitting in the wings. Look who's on the stage with this person, and they're just not prepared. And the opportunity, not only does the opportunity pass them by, but it eliminates further opportunities, because that's, I've seen so many speakers, and I know you have, and I know your listeners have. I know to see these speakers on the stage who are clearly not as prepared as they should be. They clearly don't have the skills that they should have. They clearly don't have the structure in their message. They clearly don't have any strong substance. And what will happen is that people will see them, they will give them a kind applause, and then that's the last time that they will ever grace that stage. And there's an opportunity cost to that, because further opportunities down the road that we don't even know exist, that we don't even know are possible, will never come their way. So the only reason why I was able to go from the Jack Canfield stage to Kevin Harrington to Brian Tracy to Grant Cardone to Kevin Hart, the only reason, and my wife to Deepak Chopra, the only reason why these things have happened is because, in my experience, I've been on the stage since the age of 6, so I've been doing this a long, long time. But I know how to draw upon certain skills. I know how to structure a message, and I know how to create substance. So when we get in front of these people, the power of the spoken word gets leveraged, and I get noticed, and I get put on these stages.
So what is standing out in my mind after what you have just said is the 3 Ps: practice, prepare, presentation. And what really stands out about your story is the power of a network and networking, what you can achieve from your network with really strong networking and really strong business skills. So my next question to you, Steve, is what sets your business apart and what unique need are you filling for your customers?
So here's what I tell people. What sets us apart is basically this. If you do exactly as we say, you will succeed on the platform, period. And that's it. That's all there is to it. If you do exactly as we say, you will succeed on the platform, and there's no question about it. And now the reason I say that's the differentiator is because what we promise an individual differs from one individual to the next, because people come to us with different sets of skills. They come to us with different desired outcomes. They come to us with different stories. And so, I'm not one of those people that says, here is a set of skills that we develop and here is a set of outcomes that you'll achieve, because the skills that one person needs and the outcomes that one person is trying to achieve is different from somebody else. And so what we provide is something very, very, very customized for the individual. But at the end of the day, it simply boils down to this. You do exactly as I tell you to do, and you will be successful on the stage, on whatever platform it is for you. And that's the bottom line. And so when people come and ask me what makes you different, and I don't actually get that question anymore, because the reason people come to me now is because they see what I'm doing and because they hear about me. He's really expensive. He's the very best if you can even get him. So they don't really come to me and ask me that question. I don't have to justify myself so much anymore. But the actual answer is the results. What makes me different is that if you do exactly as I say, you will get the results that you want.
And that can be a problem sometimes because people don't always do what they say they are going to do. So as long as you invest in yourself and you do what you're meant to have done and what you have invested in, you will get the results, and you can't ask for any more than that. Now, Steve, can you share more detail on the kind of services and products that you offer?
Sure. So we have a couple of ways to work with us. One way is my one-on-one elite high-end mentorship, which is where, you and I would spend 3 months together learning stuff, whatever it is you need to learn. If it's about messaging, if it's about body language, stage mechanics, voice projection, all the different things that speakers need, whatever it is. So you and I would do like very intense, in-depth work, highly customized to your needs and your desired outcome. And we get very intense for about 3 months. And then there's maybe 4 or 5, maybe 3-4 months of support where you would send me videos and we do video review and all of those things. So that's the high-end elite one-on-one mentorship. And then now I select very few of those per year. I mean, I do have them, but I'm very selective of who gets into that program. That's usually people who are already quite successful and who already have a fairly substantial skill set. But then different from that is my wife, Jane, and I have a network that we've created called the Wealthy Entrepreneurs Network Global, or we call it WEN Global. Now, WEN Global was created because my time had become so unavailable because I was totally booked up with one-on-one mentorship clients. And it's really interesting, Mark, because I kept raising the fees and people kept paying them. And so I raised them again and people kept paying them. And so we got to the point where I felt like I was losing connection with my previous clients and the network and the community that we had built because I simply didn't have the time to interact and to serve them. And so what we decided to do was we created a community called the Wealthy Entrepreneurs Network. And now you don't have to be wealthy to be in the network in terms of your bank account, but you do have to be wealthy at least in terms of your mindset. And so what we do now is we've created this network. We hold events all over the place. We call them the WEN Global Experience. And now what happens is in those events, as part of our network, you can come to as many of these events as you want to, and we do them several times a month. And they're big events, with 100, 120, 150 people, so they're reasonable sized events. But this is now where we get to share our expertise. We get to highlight and showcase our clients. We put them on the platform. They can sell their services, and we give them training and coaching. And so we bring people into our orbit with this Wealthy Entrepreneurs Network so that they have regular access to us, and we can nurture those relationships. And as part of the network, there's all kinds of bonuses and all different ways that they can interact with us and have access to us that the outside world just doesn't have. So the WEN Global Network, Wealthy Entrepreneurs Network, has become our primary focus in terms of serving our community and serving our audience by bringing people into the network so that they can be part of our orbit, so that I can reduce the amount of one-on-one high-end coaching I'm doing and spend more time with the community. And so we started that back in November. It's growing very, very, very quickly. But right now, that is our primary focus. And then in addition to that, I've got my books. I just wrote a new book called Deep Thought Strategy, which went #1 in 4 different countries around the world. And I have a book that I wrote back in 2011 called From Stage Fright to Spotlight. And it's sort of a manual for beginners, gives them some strategies and tips to prepare for the stage. So there's those. And I have some basic online courses. But generally, the way people work with us now is they come into the Wealthy Entrepreneurs Network community, they get access to us in that manner, or they be part of my high-end one-on-one coaching. And Jane also does high-end one-on-one coaching. She's known as the 7-figure mindset mentor. And so what she does is she helps people identify patterns in their lives that are not serving them. Then she helps them identify the belief systems that drive those patterns. Then she goes deeper than that. She helps them find the cause of those belief systems. And then instead of just changing behaviors, what she does is she helps change the relationship with the cause. And once she changes the relationship with the cause of the belief system, then she takes them to the next step where they change the belief system. And in changing the belief system, it reflects in permanent change of the patterns. And so she has a high-end one-on-one mentorship for that. She takes very few clients because she runs our business, but she has a great passion for that work. She's been doing it for since 2010. And I don't know if you know Jane's story, but Jane ran an 8-figure business. She had an $11 million business that she built herself. She retired from that business in 2010 and started coaching others how to do the same. And so that's how we typically work.
Well, together you just make such a great team, because with the right belief systems, the right mindset, taking the right action and having the right skills, anything is possible. And the two of you together have all of those skills. Now, I would imagine you have all sorts of client success stories. What is one that really stands out in your mind?
There's one, you're right, there are lots, but I think at this moment, the one that stands out most in my mind is a young man from New Zealand. His name is Cam Calcoen. Cam was born with cerebral palsy, and all of his childhood, he was told all the things that he was not going to be able to do. And of course, he's one of those people that chose not to listen to the advice. So the short version of the story is that when he was in his teens and early 20s, he became an Olympic champion, a Paralympic champion. And so Cam went, he finished school, went to work, but he always wanted to get on stages. He always wanted to bring his message to the world. But he wasn't able to get a lot of traction. He got a few little speaking gigs here and there. He had signed with a speakers bureau in New Zealand. They got him a little bit of work, but not a lot. And so he came to me and he asked me if I would help him construct his message, if I would help give him some structure, and if I would help him develop some skills that he could use on the platform, not in spite of his cerebral palsy, but to leverage his cerebral palsy. And so we worked with Cam several times over the period of about 2 or 3 years. And now Cam is, last week, he just won the Speaker of the Year award in New Zealand. He is now a spokesperson for Toyota, and he speaks all over the world. He is one of the most successful speakers in the Southern Hemisphere, and he's just now breaking into the United States. He's speaking for 20,000 people sometime in the next couple of weeks in California, and he has elevated his game to the global level. And now he is one of the speakers in the Global Speakers Federation. He's one of the speakers that other speakers aspire to be. So they watch what he's doing and they go, wow, I want to be like that. And that is one of the success stories that I think I'm most proud of, because it was Cam and I who built those messages together. And when Cam needed help with his performance, when he needed help with his delivery, he and I worked on these things over and over for several years. And so when I see what's happening with this young man, I'm so proud of the work that he's done.
That was the word I was going to say, Steve, is proud. That must be so satisfying, helping someone to go on to achieve those great things. That is so, so nice to hear. So, Steve, you are doing many, many things. I know you have your big event coming up with Grant Cardone, Kevin Harrington, Kevin Hart, Sunil Tulsiani. I would still like to know, what's new for Steve? What are you working on new? There's got to be things that you're thinking, I want to do this, new goals, new dreams, because even though you have reached a certain level of success, it's never ending, isn't it, Steve? There's always another level to grow, to expand, evolve. So I would like to know, what are your future plans and what are you working on?
Sure. So I'll give you two answers, and you're right, there are many things, but I'll give you two answers, one personal and one professional. So the professional one is, we're getting momentum on the WEN Global Network, and right now we've got a lot of traction here in Canada, particularly in Ottawa and Toronto, where these are our areas. We're getting a lot of interest in this community from New Zealand. We're getting interest in Singapore. We're getting interest in the UK. So over the next 2-3 years, our objective now is to really build this community in all of those areas. Now, the way we plan to do that is this. Right now, I am the vice president of the Global Speakers Federation. In July of 2021, I become the president. Now, as president of the Global Speakers Federation, I'll have the opportunity to visit all 17 professional speaker associations around the world. And so our plan is to bring our community, bring the WEN Global community to every one of those association areas and build this into a truly global orbit, a global empire for entrepreneurs, to help them achieve the level of wealth that they desire by helping them develop mindset and belief systems that support their growth, and helping them develop the speaking and sales skills that they need to drive the business. So on the business side, that's the goal. That's what we're after. And on the personal side, I'll let you, it's a big goal. And on the personal side, we're very excited about this. Jane and I just last year, a couple of years ago, we bought a nice big piece of property on the water here in Ottawa. It's property that you can't get, and we stumbled across it and we bought it. And we're in the process of building a nice big multi-million-dollar home. And so we're very excited about that. And so these are the two trajectories that are pulling us forward these days.
Steve, I have thoroughly enjoyed learning about you, your business, also learning more about Jane. I've really enjoyed a conversation with you today. Is there anything that you would like to say what I didn't cover?
You know, you're such a good host and such a good interviewer, Mark. I think you've hit upon on all of it. But I think I'm going to share this final word of encouragement and wisdom, I think, for your listeners, and that is this. It took me 30 years in business to decide that I needed help to make it to the next level. And it wasn't until I decided to hire the mentor who was doing what I wanted to do, but couldn't get there. The mentor was Sunil Tulsiani. He was on those big stages with those big names. I wanted to do that. I hired him as my mentor, and I'm on those stages. And it took me 30 years to make that decision because I was always using these excuses. I can't afford it. It's too expensive. I'll do it on my own. I'm good enough. I can make it happen. So all of these excuses were holding me back. I don't need a mentor. You know, all of these excuses were holding me back. And when I finally chose to release those excuses and make the investment in myself, that's when life truly changed. So you have listeners. I know you have listeners right now at this minute that are thinking to themselves, training is too expensive. A mentorship is too expensive. The community is too expensive. I can't afford it, and I can do it myself, and I have everything I need, and I know how to do it alone. I know you have listeners that are thinking these things, and here's my encouragement to you. If that's you, Mr. or Mrs. Listener, if that's you, here's what I want you to know. If those excuses are true, then you don't need a community like mine or a coach or trainer like me. But if you know in your heart of hearts that those excuses are not true, then find a person that is doing what you want to do and get them to help you, because there is no need for anybody to live a life of mediocrity unless they choose to.
A great way to finish, Steve. And my last question to you, how can the viewers connect with you?
Yeah, sure. So my website is easy to find. It's stevelowell.com, Lowell, stevelowell.com. And you can find out about our community, the WEN Global community, at thelowells.global. That's the Lowells, Lowells, the Lowells.global, not .com. It's the Lowells.global. And at that website, you'll be introduced to our community. And so those are the easiest ways to find us.
Thank you so much for being my guest today, Steve. I really enjoyed a conversation with you.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.